Good morning, friends and neighbors of the Hapeville channel, here and afar. Dewey here. Just finished with my 2 pet sitting drop-ins this morning, and I'm walking around La Vista and the Victoria Lane. I'm coming up on that intersection, and I thought I'd bring you with me because it's so beautiful outside. Let me flip this around. 3366 La Vista. We're walking. You can see it goes down and back up again to Old Jonesboro Road, where Gene and Louise Norton have their beautiful home on the corner there. Here's 3361 on a beautiful sunny day. Look at that side yard they have. Surprised that lot hasn't been sold yet. 3349, that one looks very similar. Oh no, sorry, that's 3353. 3349 is the next one, but that one looks almost exactly like it probably did when it was built. I'm guessing in the 30s. 3352. I think I'm gonna walk straight down Victoria Lane. That house on the corner is Ann and Janet. Some friends of mine, Ann and Janet. They've been very good friends to Douglas and I. Here's 3345. I've mentioned it before, but a lot of the houses here in town have the little butterflies on them. Those wooden butterflies are made by, I can never remember if his name is Tom or Tim, but it is, a long-time local here in town. A couple new infills here along the road. Number 3345 and 3341 here on La Vista. These are beautiful ranch-style homes over here, built in the 50s. Number 3340. And up here where the stop sign is at Barnett, this is Barnett Drive to the left, where the creek comes out here. It's always fascinated me because it has these big, beautiful rocks here, and you can see what... Good morning, Bob. Here's 3336. You can see the big rocks here and imagine what this space must have looked like when the creek came through and... Good morning. When the creek came through and there was no one living out here. I found an article from the very late 1800s about a picnic on the Cash Farm. And it described what very much seems like it would have been this location, because all of this land back in the late 1800s was owned by the Cash family. And it said a picnic spot on the Cash Farm next to the creek on these big boulders or something to that effect. And I always feel like it was this spot. And this is just such a lovely spot right here where the creek comes around. The sun is shining right here, but you can see the beautiful A-frame house right there. It's lovely. And the creek comes right through here. Good morning. Is this your home? Hi, I'm Dewey. I work for the Historical Society here. Good to see you. What's your name? Brandon? Randy. Pleasure to meet you, Randy. I'm showing my a lot of people that follow the live walks that I do in the morning. They grew up here in Hapeville, so they follow my walks, and I'm talking about the creek and how long it's been here. You have such a lovely house right next door. Did you do all this? Did you build the wall and everything? Oh, gotcha. Oh, did you? You had to find all that rock and...
It was covered up when I started working on it.
I'll be darned. Well, I'm glad you did it because it looks lovely. I was just sharing with them that in the research that I done, I found an article from, I think it was the late 1800s, and it talks about a town picnic that they had back then. And it said it was on the Cash family farm. And I know that back in the late 1800s, one family owned a lot of this, like all the way up to that old cemetery.
Family was here back. They used to wash their clothes in this spring water.
Did they? Which family was that?
Brady's family.
Oh, right there in the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it talked about this picnic, and it said something to the effect of on the boulders by the creek, and I went, I'll bet that's next to that house.
There's carvings on the stone that date back to 1800.
Are you kidding? What do they say? Can you tell?
Just carvings. One of them says, you know, it's just, yeah, you can see a little bit of it, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, there's, you know, rest in peace.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I love that you uncovered all the rocks and everything. It's such a beautiful spot.
You know, the funny thing about it is when I was about 10 years old, I lived in Forest Park, and we'd go from Forest Park Church of Christ to Hapeville Church of Christ.
Yeah.
You know, and on a church bus, and I didn't know where this was, but I used to love creeks. I'd come down through here, and this was a whole lot more stone exposed. It's all still covered up. And I used to think it was the coolest creek when I
Yeah.
came down through when I was 10. Well, 16 years ago, we bought this place. She said there's a little creek running beside the house. I'm like, well, I like that.
Yeah.
None of this you could tell was, and it wasn't in my mind, but when I started working on it and started exposing it,
You remembered it?
then I knew this is the creek that I like.
I'll be darned, and now you live right next to it.
So it's my,
That is
I was
so-
put here to get it back to its
Yes, you were, Randy. You did a great job. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Every time I walk over here, I look at how it runs under here, and then I guess it goes right there because the
It goes underneath. And it goes
And
to
that-
Cranford's house. Behind these guys, Cranford.
I'm gonna walk over there next. It goes behind the Cranford's house. I don't know which.
Not this one. It's underground behind their house.
Oh, right.
It comes back out behind that house and then goes on down towards
Oh, yeah.
Stevens across down towards the big.
That's right. And goes under Old Jonesboro Road right there.
Yeah, this runs right through.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And the other thing I wonder, I think it's neat because you can tell the creek's path a little because willow trees, from what I understand, they need water. So they always pop up along a creek or something.
Right on top of it.
Yeah.
I tell you,
So it's just such a pretty lot. Do you think the creek will save that from somebody ever selling that and putting a big old house there?
you can't build there.
I'm glad to hear that actually because it's such a pretty corner.
Can't build there.
Too much water and
Well, he looked at, but no, it's a floodplain.
ah,
See
okay.
How high my stone is right here?
Yes.
The water's been that high since I've been here.
You're kidding me.
It was going over the street and flowing over the top, going down through there.
Oh, and fills all that right
Yeah,
in.
it filled the hole up, and then it was going over the
Really?
street, over that curve, and going down behind their house and following the creek, but up here on the ground. Now, I've only done that one time since I've been here.
Well, it'll do it again. If you see it happen once, it'll happen again.
To be honest with you, since I've done what I've done, it used to come in my yard all the time, but since I've got it wider and faster and cleaner, it hardly ever comes out.
Wow, so you put this here because the water was literally coming all the way up here and you had to guide it back down in.
Well, I'm just following the bank. But
Yeah.
As high as it got right there.
I am
And then
so...
it would be up against those stones over there on my side of my driveway. Right, it was all the way up there.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, it's a beautiful little corner. I love it. Every time I walk by, I think,
You can't build here, and you can't build there.
good,
It's floodplain.
good. Well, I appreciate you talking to me this morning. Now I know a little bit more about this. My name is Dewey, by the way.
I know of you. My
Oh.
wife, she sees you guys.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love this town. And so while the weather's still nice, I take a walk every morning. I've got a few friends that used to live here, the Millers, Don Miller. Did you ever know Don Miller? He's watching right now. Don and Beverly Miller, they lived over on Dorsey in the 80s. A couple other people, I can't remember. Sandra Rice is here. But I love walking around because they go, oh, that was this person's house. And I went there. And yeah, so I learn a lot more just by them telling me.
Yeah,
Cool.
I lived in Forest Park, but like I said, we knew people that went to church over there. That used to live here.
Oh, yeah. So that
People
brought you
used
over.
to live here that now live in Hapeville.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, it's beautiful. You've got a lovely spot. Your house is gorgeous. Did you paint it recently?
we did
Yeah.
last
It's,
redid everything.
that looks beautiful. Well, thanks, Randy. I appreciate your time. All right, I'll see you around. Well, that was nice. So, sorry, you probably couldn't hear half of what he was saying, but Randy lives right there in that house, and he said he bought it 16 years ago, and he was thrilled to uncover that creek there and all the beautiful rocks, because when he was 10, he used to come up here from where he lived to go to church fish fries, and he would play along that creek when he was a kid, and then he realized that's where his house is now. Don says Don Ordner used to live in Randy's house. Oh, I wish I'd seen that right when well, next time I see Randy, I'll tell him that. There's 3324. Look how cute that one is with the beautiful trees, 3316. So as Randy was telling me, he was saying the creek runs right through there as I expected and goes through that lot, which I figured because look, there's 2 willow trees right there, and willow trees grow along creeks. And he was telling me that his creek can overflow quite a bit. So he had to add the extra edge there to guide the water down. But he said that corner, I'm so glad to hear it, that big, beautiful corner can never be built on because it's a floodplain. So we're always going to have that beautiful corner. Good morning, Beverly. Good morning, Nita. Yep, the weeping willows. They mark where the creek goes underneath. And then it goes back behind, he said, the Cranford's house. I think that's them. Because my friend J.T. Morris, he lives in that house. The creek goes behind, and then when you go to Old Jonesboro Road, Carol Stevens lives up on the corner. Her father lives down the hill, and the creek opens up right behind his house. I love finding out stuff like that and connecting the dots. He's got his window closed, but on Instagram I've been seeing that Jason's been working this week very hard on Christmas decorations in his house. He's got 3 Christmas trees in there, and it looks beautiful. Yep, this is the Cranfords. It says on their mailbox, Frank J. Cranford. Lovely, cute little house at 3315. Here's Colorado. I'm not going to walk that way today, or at least in this moment. I'm going to walk up past Colorado and La Vista, up past 3312. Listen, I love corner lots. I know y'all probably love corner lots too. Good morning, Richard Suddeth. Pleasure to have you with me walking this morning in Hapeville. Gosh, that's cute. It's this almost the same. I'd say it is the same style. Yeah, all these small type homes. 3313. There's a house that we're coming to up on the left. Oh gosh, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But she was a female stunt pilot, rather well known in Hapeville back in the 40s and 50s, I think, are the decades. It could have even been before that. Oh, I can't remember her name. But she was a woman stunt pilot, and she lived in this house. She has a very unique name that I cannot recall now. This is number 3307. Don said, did Carol Stevens tell you her and her family lived on the corner of Dorsey and Forest Hills? If she did, I didn't retain that, but that means she was your neighbor. That's fantastic. Everybody knows everybody in Hapeville. Here's 3308. The sun is shining, but there's a beautiful big evergreen there. Actually, and a bunch more right there. There we go. Can you see it? The sun will go behind. Look at that tree. Look how beautiful that is. Good morning, Teresa. And that's at 3308. And a couple more houses on the left here, 3305, La Vista. And I believe that's where Carol Stevens lives, if I'm not mistaken, who participates here a lot. 3303. Oh, sounds like there's landscapers up there at the Norton's house. A couple weeks ago, I was doing one of these walks over in Virginia Park and saw Gene Norton going into his real estate office, and I felt like I was seeing Bigfoot because I've seen photographs and references of Gene and Louise Norton. They were very active here in town for several decades, many decades. Well, he still is. My point being, I've never actually seen them in person other than that moment that I saw Gene. We're at La Vista and Old Jonesboro Road. When it's warmer, Douglas and I love to ride our bikes, and we just take off the brake and go right down the hill. I'm going to go left because my friend Melinda, she lives down here in her house, and I haven't ever showcased her house. She said, you should come around here. Good morning, Melissa. Melissa, we are now at the corner of La Vista Drive and Old Jonesboro Road. I just came up La Vista Drive, and now we're going down Old Jonesboro Road past the Norton house. It's a beautiful property. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Another one of my favorite houses. There's several houses in this town that I absolutely love. And it's all about, for me, it's about the aesthetics, curb appeal. I like when a house sits on a big piece of land and looks like a piece of art and you can see it. And 3407 is that. Look at their beautiful lawn. Look at that house. Oh my gosh. That's just out of a magazine. Isn't that lovely? And people don't really walk along this road very much. I mean, Hapeville's known for not having sidewalks everywhere. I met a new friend here. Her name is Sam. And she fosters dogs in need. And every now and then she'll reach out to me and ask me if I'll come meet her new doggies. This is number 3394. I've never met who lives there yet, but they've got a nice fiery fall explosion in front of their front yard. And on this side, we're coming past 3403. Beautiful ranch style house. They still got their pumpkins out front. And now here, when I first moved to town, one of the first houses to pop out at me was Melinda's house. I haven't been in it yet because of the pandemic and we're all being safe. This is number 3390. It's right on the corner of Woodland, where Perry and Miriam Hudson used to live, and now their daughter Jan lives there. I had the pleasure of going in there to do pet sitting about a month ago, and it was fascinating to be in there because I've read all about Perry and Miriam. But 3390, this was built in 1949. Let's see, Bob said, let's see, I gotta scroll back here. Beverly says, Caroline's on the left corner where my best friend Tracy Carr in high school lived. Hi, Kelly. Annie wrote a book, but I think your other friend said the pilot is Bonnie Rowe. Bonnie Rowe is one of the famous, thank you for sharing that. How did you know that, Kelly? You don't even live in Hapeville. Bonnie Rowe is definitely a well-known female stunt pilot, but she is not the one that lived there. Her name started with a D or had a D in it. Something D. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to research it when I get home and put it in the comments. But Bonnie Rowe is even more famous than the lady that I was mentioning. That bike ride down that long hill was one of my greatest thrills as a boy in the 50s, was it? It doesn't look that steep, does it, Bob? But when you're coming down this hill on a bike and you hit right here and you fly past Woodland, I always hoop and holler. My husband's always a few feet ahead of me, and he laughs because I always go, woohoo, as we're coming down past Carol's family home, her father's house. But I hope to go in there and see Melinda's house inside. Craig says Walt Anderson lived in the house where the Nortons live. Really? He was blind and operated a coin-op business across from City Hall. Oh, so he's the one that had the, when you say coin-op, Craig, are you talking about the arcade that you used to tell me was over there? So he lived in the Nortons' house, huh? For some reason, I assumed that they'd been there forever, but it's a beautiful property, and so is this one. Look how large this corner is. Absolutely beautiful. I've met Melinda's husband and daughter. They came to help us with an event we did about a year ago on the steps, those stone steps, the bleachers. Douglas and I created a memorial of candles last year for victims of COVID, and Melinda's husband and daughter came to help us set that up. But Melinda was busy that day. Nita says, Bobby put me on his shoulders riding down Meadow Road on a bike. That's brave. Now, this house right here was built in, I want to say 55, I can't remember, but Dick Miller, who I've asked him a couple of times, are you related to Don and Beverly? And he's like, no, those are the other Millers, which in this town, I always think it's amazing that there are other Millers and other Callahans, and town's too small for others. This is 3339, and Dick Miller and his family used to live over on either North Whitney or Myrtle. I can't remember which one. That's where Dick Miller lived when he was a kid. Then they moved here when they built this house. Don Miller says, lots of people I went to school with lived on Woodland, the McCords. Oh, I am one of the McCord sons lives down in PSB, Palm something beach in Alabama. Anyway, we're connected online. A very nice guy. He owns a pottery and garden shop down there in Panama City Beach. Is that Florida? That's Florida. But yeah, he's one of the McCords, the other McCords. He's not even related to Betty Barnett McCord, the Cummings, Matina, Lori, and Leslie. Oh, Matina Cummings. Did she live on Woodland? She still lives here in town. She lives over on Stillwood now, and she comes to our events every now and then. She's a lovely lady. I love her. Very progressive thinker. Craig Smith said, yes, always ironic. A man with no sight lived in such a gorgeous home. Isn't that true? So there you go. This was Dick Miller's home. And this house, oh God. Another house that I absolutely love, and I fell in love with it more when I got to go inside. And what I love is that Perry and Miriam, their daughter Jan, still lives here. And what I love is on the mailbox, it still has their names on the top. It says P and J, I think, P and J Hudson. But when I was caring for her cats recently, I got to go wander out in the backyard, and that creek that we saw over by Randy, here it comes. It comes around and comes behind Carol Stevens' father's house, and it's so beautiful. It goes under Old Jonesboro and right behind the Mason, I want to say Perry Mason. Hudson. Behind the Hudson family home. And so you can go out back and sit by the creek if you want to. 3405. Now, Carol was telling me recently that her father's 97, and he just recently had to get hospice care. I don't know if that means somebody's here at his house, but I would see him out here in his wheelchair picking up sticks and doing lawn work at that age. Isn't that something? Craig said Jim McCord lived on Myrtle when he first moved to Hapeville. Yes. He mentioned that. Now, this is where the creek comes, and they've got a beautiful little bridge back there, and here comes that creek that we saw earlier. And what I love is, I've noticed this before, when you come over here, there it is. And it's flowing pretty nicely right there. Isn't that nice? But what I love here is if you look down, well, he's got planters around here, which is so nice. But down here, I've always noticed this. It says MAR 10, 1927. So this culvert, my guess is, was built March 10th, 1927. Almost 100 years ago, you guys. It's just lovely. There's something magical about a creek flowing right by your house. And then it goes under and behind the Hudson's house. What a pretty day it is this morning. Gosh. Oh, Hapeville is gorgeous. Georgia is gorgeous. I never would have thought that I would have ended. If you had told me a decade ago when I was living in Manhattan that one day I would end up in a little town like this in Georgia, I would have said, you're crazy. But here we are. So we're coming up on the corner of North Side and Old Jonesboro. There's the tight curve right there. And that creek is right behind. So this person actually can go down in there and enjoy the creek. Now this house has just been sitting here empty since I moved here almost 4 years ago. It's a lovely corner lot. And then this is a beautiful house. You can't see it really well, but it's got these lovely arches on the front porch. There's a young couple that live there. They have at least one kid, and she is a woodworker. She does beautiful woodwork. And so I've mentioned this before. Up until a couple months ago, this was beautiful, huge virgin pine trees, but not now. Bob says Eddie Hudson lived there. He went to University of Georgia and to the vet school and is now a DVM in Alberta, Canada. Oh, the thing I cling to is that he lives in Canada. I feel he's very fortunate in this day and age to be Canadian. Yeah, so Eddie, I think Jane Hudson. Did I say Jan earlier? Her name is Jane. Jane Hudson. I think her mother's name was Miriam Jane or Jane Miriam, but everybody called her Miriam. Anyway, Jane is 60-something years old, and I think Eddie is her older brother. And yes, she did tell me he lives in Canada. And I think she had one more brother. Thank you, Bob. It is Jane. She was gorgeous when she was younger. Holy monkey. I saw pictures hanging in her house, and then I went into the yearbook because she was either a Flair girl or homecoming queen. I can't remember, but I think she was a Flair girl. She was gorgeous. She became a nurse. Here's number 3393. I always wondered what it would be like to live right. I don't want to find out, but this corner right here, there's a stop sign there and a stop sign there, but people still zip right down around here. In my research, I found an article from the 20s, early 20s, at the advent of, the popularity of automobiles, and a young kid was either coming up the hill or down. They say he was on the curve at Old Jonesboro Road, headed towards Atlanta, so he must have been coming up, and it says he flipped over, broke his neck, and died. Long time ago. It always makes me wonder how people died in car accidents back in the 20s. I'm like, those cars went 5. 10, but it happened. Number 3391, a big ranch style house here. We're headed down towards the park. I've been there a gazillion times, but I figure I'll go that way. I stopped because I just remembered I left my car back at where I was pet sitting, and I've walked a long way from it. What do I want to do? I'm going to turn back around. Good morning, Sandy. I love these trees. The big magnolia he's got here on the corner. And then a bunch more. I don't know how magnolias work, but it looks like they've dropped little babies and those grew up. And it all looks like one big tree. You're welcome. Wouldn't even enter my mind to litter. Doesn't that shock you when you're driving around and you see somebody roll a window down and they just throw their trash out? My jaw just drops to the ground. I'm like, you're an adult. I learned that back in the 70s when I was a kid. That would weigh on my conscience so heavily as I passed that plastic bag. And I don't have anywhere to put it. I just can't imagine throwing trash out of my house. All right, we're going to head back this way. And we're going to walk down Northside Drive. I think I did that the other day, so pardon me for repeating. But again, Hapeville's only 2.5 square miles. You know what? Because of the sun, I think I'll just walk back up this direction that I just came from. So why not? Because the sun is right in our face if I turn right and go down there. And then, of course, I don't know quite how it works, but we discovered that the creek goes across there. But there's also behind here a little creek that goes this way and runs up over, by the park, there's a storm drain pond over there. I never know what a retention pond. But I think that must run off of here. The little creek must break off of there. Good morning, Henrietta Kite. Headed back to my car now. So we're walking back the way we came. If you all have any memories or thoughts of this area or anywhere in Hapeville, feel free to share it with me. I always love hearing your memories. So what was really interesting is when I went into Jane Hudson's house, I actually knew that her father, because he had worked for the airlines, I think it was Southeastern for most of his career. I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe it was Delta. He worked for Southeastern or Southwest. I don't know which one. But he was a very respected pilot. He was a senator. They named Loop Road over by the airport, they named it Perry Hudson Parkway after him. But in my research when I was at the depot, I found an article in one of the archival books about Perry Hudson, and and his collection of airplane and aeronautical memorabilia, and it had a picture of him. This was back in the 70s or 80s, and it had a picture of him with his memorabilia in the basement of this house. It is, Don. The Northwoods is a beautiful area, lots of land around each house. This is where people who lived over on the other side of town, when they could, like Don Miller did, Dick Miller's family did, they built over here to have a little more breathing room. So I'm in Jane's house, and I told her, I said, your father collected aeronautical memorabilia, and I came across this article with a picture of him standing with it all in the basement. It was hanging on the walls. He had airplanes hanging from the ceiling and all that. She says to me, this was about a month ago, she goes, oh, it's still there. He died back in the 90s. She takes me down into the basement, and albeit dusty and things are crooked on the walls and stuff, there it was. I'm not into aeronautical stuff, but I am into people who are passionate about things and collect things. And the fact that Perry Hudson spent so much time collecting all that stuff and putting it in his basement, and the fact that it's still there hanging, I was fascinated, everybody. I was fascinated, and I wanted to scoop it all up and preserve it and put it into the Depot Museum, but unfortunately I don't have the power to do that, but I wish I did. Yes, this is a very beautiful part of town. Anybody got big plans today? Douglas and I did our last show a couple nights ago of the season. It's too cold to be doing shows outside, and we don't do them inside at this point. We just don't feel comfortable doing it. So we decided to take December, January, February, March, till it gets warm again. We're just going to be at home reading books, creating art, and enjoying some downtime. So today I'll probably work on some more art. I'm making these signs that I love creating with my art on them. Lots of different sayings on them. What are you guys going to do today? When I left Manhattan, and I was new here in Hapeville, and I didn't know anybody, and Douglas wasn't even here yet. He was still on tour in Europe with a show. I was here alone. I would follow this guy that would walk around Manhattan, and I'd get so wistful for my old stomping ground. So I imagine that for some of you, it may feel like that. I think that might be Carol Stevens leaving. I'm such a predator. That's what it feels like. I want to go, hey, why aren't you following me? But I think that was her just now pulling out of her house. Beverly says she's pre-cooking. That's what my husband's doing today, Beverly. Bob says that creek ran directly to the ballpark and went underground at the bottom of Meadow Road. Yes, next to the old scout hut. Yes, that's where our community garden is now. It seemed to be part of storm drainage. That's what I wanted to say, storm drainage. And there was a valley that was not developed behind there due to that. Yes, it's still there. That little valley. And it has like this big cement. I don't know if it was there when you were there, but it's fenced off and it's got barbed wire around the top. But down in the middle of that valley in that storm drain catch thing, there's a big cement, like culvert-y kind of thing. That's right. Thanksgiving is, that's tomorrow, you guys. Douglas and I, we're just going to eat at home. He loves cooking. I'm like, you don't have to do it. But he bought a whole big old turkey. And he's cooking, and it's just for us. And I said, why are you cooking a whole turkey? He said, 'cause we can eat it for the next 2 weeks. It's so true. Darden? Her name was Darden. Something Darden. Beverly Darden? Gosh. My husband has a mind of a steel trap. He remembers all names and places. I do not. But there was a female pilot who lived here. Her name was Darden. I'm pretty sure that was her name. Joan Darden? Nah, I don't remember. Look at that. Look at those colors. This is the kind of weather where I have a sweater and then my coat and then a hat, and it's just at that level of temperature where I'm like, I'm walking on a hill and I'm getting too sweaty for this, but if I take it off, I'm too cold. I can't believe that creek is still so clear. Yes, I'm so glad it is. I'm so glad it is. I'm glad that I met Randy earlier. It's so funny. He was looking at me with those suspicious eyes. Sometimes people are like, why the hell are you standing in the street with your camera pointed at my house? And that's how he was at first. But one thing that I'm pretty good at, I think, is disarming people and letting them know pretty quickly that I'm not up to no good. I think that charm came from my training at the Walt Disney Company. Oh, that and having to navigate an alcoholic mother. You learn really quick how to let people know you are not a threat when you grow up with a mom that you don't know what's going to happen. There's a little personal stuff for you that I wasn't planning on. Love that house. When JT moved in, he found some old papers in the attic and gave them to me from the former people that lived there. They were had an L in it. Langtham. I can't remember, but he found some great stuff in the attic. I loved going through it, including a letter that was written home. The little girl that lived here back in the 60s, she went on that trip out to California that y'all remember so well in 68 when the Hapeville High School band was in the Rose Bowl parade. One of the band members, I forget her name, but she lived there, and she wrote a letter home to her mom, and it was up in the attic. And one of my favorite things about that letter was she said that the principal took them to see, while they were out there, took them all to see Phyllis Diller. And she said, we got to see about 3 minutes because she used naughty words. And I think she said Mr. Purdy. Mr. Purdy made us leave because it wasn't for kids. And I loved that I saw that in a letter. Headed back up past, along La Vista, past Victoria Lane. Back to my car. Woo! Yeah, I love the creeks in this town, and when I find reference to them from decades and decades ago, it makes me sad that now they're by and large covered up. And locals now, it isn't like when you guys were here, where you were like, let's go play at the creek, where you knew where it was and it was a part of your life and your childhood and it held some magic. I hear people say that all the time. They loved going to catch crawdads in the creeks here. Now they're all covered up. And they continue to be so. I think there's some over behind where In City Suites is, back where the Stillwood and Springdale, that neighborhood that's gone. I believe a creek runs through there too. There's some water action going over there, spring or creek or whatever, but there's a variance from the developer allowing them to do whatever developers do, to either cover it up or reroute it. But it's interesting that they're going to build over there because it's like a big hole. Ooh, this hill is steep. Don says my 4th grade teacher, Miss Rogers, lived next to the creek. I've always wanted to live next to a creek. I really have. It's my favorite to take a chair, a little lawn chair, and just sit and put your feet in the water. It's one of the first things I did here when I got to Hapeville. I said to my friend, who had lived here for 8 years, and she really didn't get out that much. I said, I want to go put my feet in a creek. She said, Sweetwater. So I drove all the way to Sweetwater, and I enjoyed it. But I would like to have lived here in a day where I could do that here. You can do it out behind Jane Hudson's house. You could probably do it behind Carol Stevens' dad's house. Oh, good morning, Julie. I am at the end of my walk over here on La Vista. Woo! Oh my God, that hill. Okay, so before I go, I haven't been able to determine yet. Yesterday when I walked by that building and then another building further down, people were commenting, oh, that was Dr. Green's office. But I think it was the building further down, the little brick building that y'all were telling me was Dr. Green's office. Whew. All right. That is our walk around Hapeville this morning. Papa is officially out of breath. I am way too out of shape for 53 years old. Oh my God, I turned 53 in like 2 weeks. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I remember living in New York and thinking, I am going to have an amazing 50th birthday. It's going to be huge. And that's the year I ended up relocating to Hapeville. And now 3 years have popped by so fast. You're very welcome. Bob, Nita, thanks for joining me. You guys create yourself a great day. Enjoy it. If you think of any other memories, feel free to share with me. Thanks for joining me for the walk. Bye.